Hello Dragon Ballers, it's Dokkan and today we are going to discuss the top 10 LRs in the game. We're going to discuss JP LRs, Global LRs, all of them, every single one of them, and just the top 10. Now, because this is the internet, I feel the need to add a disclaimer here. Warning, some of the things said in this video are opinion-based. These opinions may differ from your own. Warning, some of the things said here in this video are facts, and they may blow your mind. I don't know. And we're also gonna blur the lines between them. That's gonna be the real fun part. So let's just hop right into it. At number 10, we've got LR Bojack. I have said multiple times how good LR Bojack is in the exact right situation, but I don't think I've expressed enough how bad that is, that he relies on that exact situation. Basically, when coupled up with his TOR version, he gets 50% in links on average, depending on how Big Bad Bosses activates, if you force it to activate, yada yada yada. He's got an 80% unconditional attack and defense boost, which makes him very tanky and very hard hitting, and depending on how low your HP is, he'll either tank a little bit more, or if you've got higher HP, he'll hit a little bit harder. So he's a really solidly built unit when linked up with a good partner. The problem is, most of the links that he has are not very common links, and he relies on having another Bojack character. That's pretty bad, because in this video we're gonna go over not just how hard they hit, how well they tank, but we're also gonna talk about versatility, how usable they are, how many teams they can really be realistically used on, and Bojack is really held back by that just because of his very specific uses on certain teams. Still a great unit, obviously in a top 10 list. Nobody's bad here, but some are better than others. Next, we've got Majin Vegeta. I was getting a little confused by my cursor. You probably didn't notice, I probably edited that out. Anyway, Majin Vegeta is here mostly because he does put in a solid amount of damage, but you'll see as we go on, there are more usable units than Majin Vegeta. He's got a stun chance. Stun chance really isn't that big of a deal anymore because a lot of Dokkan Fest, events, just you can't stun the enemy towards the end, so that kind of hurts him out. Not having very solid key links also hurts him a little bit. His main key link is Over in a Flash or Shattering the Limit, depending on what team you run him on. He can work on a couple of different teams pretty nicely, but he definitely does suffer for ki a little bit. The greatest thing about him, though, is he only needs to get to 12 ki to get his Mega Colossal damage off, and that can be really nice. He also has the option, if you can gather more ki, of hitting all the enemies all at once, and it's a stun chance on every single one of them. So that's really nice. His link set isn't terrible, but his ki links are a little bit lacking. If he had Fierce Battle, that might help out a little bit. If he had Prepared for Battle, that might help out a little bit. But, with these units being as good as they are, it only makes sense that they're going to try to sort of balance them out in some way. And that's, what Majin Vegeta's problem is. At number 8, we have the Vegito Blue. This should be available in JP pretty soon, but in the meantime, it's a global exclusive as of recording this video. But he's really good. He doesn't put in as much damage as the other two that we mentioned, but he is very, very tanky in addition to putting out a really significant amount of damage. The lower you are on HP, the more ki he gives himself, so he's pretty self-sufficient in that regard. Really good key links, really good key links. Prepared for Battle is good on Super STR, on Realm of Gods, on the Potara team. He's just really well built. I'm very glad that they took Over in a Flash away from him and gave him Prepared for Battle like his TUR and SSR versions had, because it really helps him out quite a bit. On Potara specifically, he's got Fused Fighter and Power Bestowed by God, which helps out quite a bit. And of course, Warrior God shows up a little bit in Realm of Gods. Not a whole lot that, it really matters, but that is a pretty nice link. And he's pretty average when it comes to how good LRs can be in this game, but average for an LR is very, very solid. So let's bump it up a bit. There's a significant gap from the units we just discussed into the next group of units that we're going to talk about. And then we'll get into, once we hit the top 3, there's another significant gap. So there's the bottom 3 that are in the low tier, huge gap, the rest of them in the middle tier, and then there's a huge gap again, and then it's the top 3. They're worlds apart. So the next we have LR Goku Black, Super Saiyan Rose, and Zamasu. The reason these guys are well above Vegito Blue is because they basically do what he does but better, except the only issue is that they're a slow starter, so they have to take hits to maximize their attack, but they get 30% attack for every hit they take, so it only takes 4 hits. Plus, they're also recovering 50% of HP every turn that they come out, so that's really nice. And they're boosting their defense when they super attack. That can stack. By the time you get yourself to the final boss, they've got all of their attack boosts, all of their defense boosts, you know, set up, and they're hitting hard, they're tanking, they're healing for you. This is an amazing unit. The main issue with this unit is that they kind of suffer from versatility. They can't be used on a whole lot of teams. Extreme Tech, they do great on Extreme Tech. Realm of Gods, they do great there, and Potara, they do pretty alright, but they do have some synergy issues on that team, just a little bit, mostly because you're trying to get below 50% HP. But I've said it before and I'll say it again, if you're on a team that is struggling to get below 50% HP and you're trying but it just can't get there, that's a good problem to have. So that's what makes these guys worlds beyond Vegito Blue. And next up we have Broly. Broly is in many ways the hardest hitting unit on this list when in the exact right situations. Once you put these units through the dupe system, Broly kind of falls back a little bit because of his flat passive, but his flat passive is huge and he super attacks twice, so he's going to be putting in a lot of damage. The main thing keeping him from being much higher on this list than he could be is the fact that he lowers his defense so much when he super attacks. He doesn't lower it so much that it's, you know, he doesn't lower it down to 0 like the Super Saiyan 3 Broly can do, but he does lower it enough that taking hits after the super attack can be really, really bad. This issue has mostly been fixed on most of the teams that you'll find him on, just because you're not forced to run the TUR Broly with him. You can run Rose with him. You can run, if you're doing Resurrected Warriors, you can run Majin Vegeta, the STR one, alongside him. And they do just fine together, and that's one less unit that's lowering their defense. So it's kind of a shame. He's really, really good for the World Tournament, and he does hit really, really hard, but he also gets hit really, really hard. And then the final thing that I've got a major beef with is his key set. It's not that great. His only real key link is Prepared for Battle. Saiyan Lineage doesn't show up enough. Berserker is, you have to be below 50% HP. Generally speaking, you don't want to get down there, especially with a unit like Broly on the field. And he's the reason that you get below 50% HP. So after he gets hit, it doesn't matter that Berserker's active, because next turn he's not going to be there. Unless you're running a mono STR with 2 Brolys, but that's a different situation altogether. But yeah, he has a hard time getting to that 18 key a good amount of the time, but it's not that bad, especially paired up with Rose. That really helps him out a lot. But once again, same problem with LR Bojack. He's really dependent on somebody to boost his key in order for him to do maximum damage. So that kind of holds him back a little bit. At number 5, we've got Super Saiyan 3 Goku, who is an amazing unit. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong about this. Putting him at number 5, I've got nothing against him as a unit. The main issue with him is that he's got Over in a Flash and Shattering the Limit. Those are his key links, and he needs to get to 18 key, otherwise he does not get an attack boost at all and ends up hitting like a flower. And that's a huge issue, because you really want consistency with your units. But because he's so good when he does get his 18 key off, and because there are so many ways to feed him key, so many ways to get around that, I've still got him higher than Broly, because he can out damage Broly pretty easily. but he just needs to get to that 18 key. And that sometimes doesn't happen. Sometimes, you guys know, playing through the game, sometimes the spheres just don't line up the way you want them to. And because of that, he kind of has a failsafe in the fact that he has 120% defense boost if you don't get the 18 key super attack off. So if you're not getting that huge damage from him, at least he's going to be tanking really well, and you can kind of set up for that. So that helps him out a little bit. It's a little failsafe, whereas with Broly, he doesn't really have a failsafe. He lowers his defense no matter what. If this Goku doesn't get to his 18 key, he becomes a tank. A really good tank, too. So a little inconsistent, but for the most part, I've talked about multiple ways that you can set this guy up to make sure that he gets his 18 key super attack off. No big deal. It just kind of is what it is. Now, for our last member of the mid-tier, as I'm calling it, we've got LR Trunks. And I've put LR Trunks here mostly because of consistency. He is much more consistent than LR Super Saiyan 3 Goku. You can put him on multiple different teams. He's got great key link, shocking speed, prepare for battle. Shattering the Limit, while it's not, a hugely popular key link, is popular enough. There's enough rebirths that get run on teams that he can set himself up really, really nicely. And that built-in crit mechanic is really nice. You can go in the dupe system and you can give him max additionals, and that just works in conjunction with that crit chance really nicely. Half the time he's going to be critting, and every time he super attacks, he boosts his defense. So he tanks, he hits really hard, he's got a built-in crit mechanic. He's just a fantastic unit overall. If in a perfect world, Super Saiyan 3 Goku will outdamage Trunks every single time, as will Broly, in fact. But we're not talking about a perfect world. We're talking rational, this is how the game works. And Trunks is way more consistent than the other two that I mentioned before. Now, we're in the top three. These three are miles beyond everyone else we have discussed. Just no competition. At number 3, we've got LR Gohan. LR Gohan has the potential to hit harder than any unit in this game, but he has to be set up properly. If you set him up with enough key spheres, he gets 18% boost to his attack for every key sphere he gets. If you set him up with enough key, he will outdamage anyone. He will max out the game's capacity for dealing with damage. You'll see 999999999. The game cannot comprehend how hard this dude can hit, but you have to set it up. And because he is reliant on other units to set him up with all that key, that kind of brings him down a little bit. Usually with your nukers, if you're saving key for them, you can kind of count on about 6 key or so, and that gives him a 60, 48, 108% boost if you get 6 key with him exactly. But that's not factoring in if you've got int orbs saved up for him, in which case it's only 30 plus 16. It's only like a 46% boost. So he can end up hitting really weakly, but he also can hit really ridiculously hard. And the good thing is he gives himself extra key when he collects keys. So for the most part, you have no problem getting his 18 key super attack off, for the most part. Every now and then you run into issues with it, but he pretty much always gets his 18 key super attack off. And that's really nice. That's really nice to have, because he's very reliable in that way. Also, prepare for battle and shocking speed. Great links. Great links to have. Those are the two most common links in this game. So very nice to have there. Now, number 2. Who is it gonna be? Well, somebody had to take number 2, and it's LR Gogeta. And the reason it's LR Gogeta is because after the fusion happens, well, actually, before the fusion happens, this guy functions the same way as the number 1 spot. You probably already know, but I'll just refer to it as the number 1 spot in the meantime, so we can keep some sort of suspense going. The main reason that Gogeta is here is because before the fusion happens, this is probably the hardest hitting unit consistently in the game. They give themselves ki when they, when they're in Goku and Vegeta form. They give themselves ki when they get Rainbow Spheres, so like LR Gohan, they have a pretty easy time getting to their 18 key super attack for the most part. Prepare for Battle is a very common key link. Golden Warrior is pretty common. That shows up nicely. And Super Saiyan, Fierce Battle, obviously great links to have. And then giving themselves key is really, really nice. But after the fusion happens, all this unit really gains is the ability to lower attack and defense, which actually takes away their attack raising mechanic, which I would argue is a better mechanic to have. And then they get that 1.5 times super effective damage dealt to everyone sort of gimmick that all Gogetas have. That isn't anywhere nearly as good as the mechanic of number 1. So because I factored in what happens after they fuse, I've got to give number 1 to Vegito. I have to. We can't ignore how broken and ridiculous this unit is once he's fused. And the amount of damage that these guys do when they're not fused is not that much lower than Gogeta. It really isn't. They're pretty much doing about the same thing. And they still have great links, both of them. They gain Fused Fighter when they fuse. You know, they've got the same gimmick. The attack and defense plus 120% turns into 150%. The difference is that when Vegito gets his counters, you're doing counters that have a 150% attack boost onto them. So both of these units tank really well, do a lot of damage. They're just the whole package. The whole package. These two units are ridiculous, but because of how much better Vegito is than Gogeta, and how that little amount that Gogeta is better than Vegito before the fusion, I've got to give the number 1 spot to Vegito for consistency, for damage, for just everything. Everything about this unit is absolutely insane. This is game breaking, and it's stupid that this unit even exists. But I love this unit. This is a fantastic unit. I mean stupid in a very good way. Anyway, so that's our top 10 all here for you to look at just as a little recap. What are your thoughts about this? How do you feel about the placement? Honorable mention to LR Goten and Trunks. Most of the reason that they're not on here is just because of their inconsistent mechanics. The randomized super attack, the randomized amount of ki, that's mostly what keeps them off of here, just to get that conversation started. I'm pretty happy with my placement on all of this kind of stuff, but you might have something, you know, to say that might just change my mind. I'm very open to other people's opinions. I will debate my side, my point, you know, very strongly. I am very attached to, you know, my own opinions and all that kind of stuff, but don't let that bother you. We're all friends here. Just if you have something to say, I would much rather you give me an explanation instead of just saying, nah, Broly's the best. Instead of just saying that, tell me why. Tell me why you think Broly should be higher up. Tell me why LR Goten and Trunks should be on this list and not LR Bojack and not whoever else. You know, tell me why, because then we can have a conversation and one of us could possibly learn, maybe both of us could learn something. And that's the beauty of this community. So if you're going to leave a comment just saying wrong, nobody's winning. If you leave a comment with really well thought out, because I thought this stuff out, I thought it out, I gave you my opinion. If you got something different, let me hear yours. It only makes sense. All right, I feel like I've said the same thing 3 times in a row, so let's just go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy today's video, consider leaving a like and subscribing. Feel free to, no pressure, all that good stuff. Leave a comment, of course. I always dig that. And yep, that's going to do it for me. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.